At the far edge of the galaxy, beyond the busy trade routes and bright star cities, there was an alien colony that most travelers avoided. The place was old, cold, and quiet, and the people who lived there believed strongly in signs, fate, and bad luck. Among them, there was one rule that never changed: cursed beings must never be trusted. In this colony, a child was born during a black solar storm. The lights failed across the city, alarms screamed, and several workers died in strange accidents on the same night. The elders did not wait for proof. They pointed at the newborn alien girl and gave her a name that was not a name at all. They called her Cursed. From the moment she opened her eyes, fear followed her. The girl was taken away from her parents and locked inside a metal chamber. No one held her. No one sang to her. No one smiled at her. Scientists watched her through thick glass walls. Whenever she moved, machines stopped working. Whenever she cried, lights exploded. Whenever she was close, someone always got hurt. As she grew older, the stories grew darker. A guard slipped and broke his neck while standing near her cell. A drone lost control and crashed into a lab wall when she looked at it. A power core failed the moment she touched the floor with her bare feet. To the people of the colony, this was enough. They stopped calling her a child and started calling her a weapon. The scientists wrote reports filled with fear. They said her presence increased the chance of failure in all systems. They said probability itself bent around her. They said she was living bad luck. The military listened closely. To them, anything that could cause death without effort was dangerous. Their solution was simple: destroy the girl before she destroyed them. The girl did not know any of this. She only knew the sound of chains, cold metal wrapped around her wrists and ankles at all times. She knew silence better than language. She knew fear better than comfort. Her eyes followed every shadow, waiting for pain. She never spoke, because no one ever spoke to her. One cycle, everything changed. The council ordered the girl to be moved. They said it was time for final testing before termination. The soldiers entered her chamber, wearing heavy armor and sealed helmets. They feared even her breath. The girl did not resist as they dragged her through the halls. She was small, thin, and trembling. They brought her into a massive hall filled with leaders, scientists, and officers. The air was tense. Energy shields hummed loudly. Weapons were aimed at her from every angle. The commander stepped forward and announced the decision. The cursed being would be assigned a guardian for observation before destruction. The hall was silent. Everyone expected the guardian to be a trained alien warrior, someone strong enough to survive a few moments near her, someone disposable. The doors opened. Footsteps echoed across the floor. What walked in was not an alien. It was a human. Gasps filled the room. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy. They were known as weak, emotional, and fragile. Many aliens believed humans survived only because they avoided danger. The commander looked displeased but continued. The human was a low-level explorer, captured months ago during a border incident. The girl lifted her head for the first time in the hall. Her eyes moved past the weapons, past the soldiers, past the council. They locked onto the human. The room waited. Machines began to shake. Warning lights flickered. Then something impossible happened. The girl raised her chained hand and pointed at the human. The shaking stopped. The lights stabilized. No one screamed. No one died. The council froze. The scientists stared at their screens in disbelief. The military tightened their grip on their weapons. The human looked confused, scared, but still standing. For the first time since her birth, the cursed girl made a choice. Out of all beings in the galaxy, she pointed at the weakest species, a human. If you are enjoying this story so far and want to hear what happens next, please consider subscribing to this channel. Your support helps bring more sci-fi stories like this to life. The human's name was Ethan. He stood alone in the center of the massive hall, surrounded by beings far taller, stronger, and more advanced than him. His hands were not chained, but armed soldiers stood close enough to end his life in a second. Ethan was not a hero. He was not a soldier. He was not important. He was a low-rank space explorer who had crossed the wrong border at the wrong time. Captured, questioned, and forgotten. To the aliens, he was nothing more than a breathing mistake. The council whispered among themselves. Why would a cursed being choose a human? Humans were known across the galaxy as weak. They felt too much. They thought too much. They broke too easily. Most alien races believed humans survived only because stronger species ignored them. The commander stepped forward, his voice sharp and angry. "This makes no sense," he said. "The human should be removed." Several military officers agreed. To them, the situation was dangerous. If the curse activated, the human would die instantly. And if the curse spread, the entire hull could collapse. But the scientists raised their hands. Their eyes were locked on the data screens. Probability spikes were dropping. System stability was increasing. For the first time in recorded history, the presence of the cursed girl was not causing chaos. The girl stood still, her chains clinking softly as she moved. She ignored the aliens, ignored the weapons, ignored the shouting voices. Her eyes never left Ethan. Slowly, she took a step toward him. The soldiers reacted instantly, weapons charging. The commander shouted for her to stop. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. Every instinct told him to run, but something in the girl's face stopped him. She did not look dangerous. She looked afraid, small, tired, and alone. Ethan swallowed hard and stayed where he was. Another step. Machines around the hall began to hum louder. Energy shields flickered. The scientists held their breath. One accident, one failure, one mistake, and everything would end. The girl stopped just an arm's length away from Ethan. Her chains shook as her hands trembled. She slowly raised her head and looked directly into his eyes. Ethan felt a strange pressure in the air, as if the universe itself was waiting. Carefully, without sudden movement, Ethan lifted his hand. A soldier shouted a warning. The commander ordered him to stop, but Ethan did not listen. He moved slowly, gently, the way someone would approach a frightened animal. His fingers touched the cold metal of her chain first. Nothing happened. No explosion. No alarms. The lights did not flicker. The floor did not shake. The room went silent. Ethan took a breath and placed his hand on her shoulder. Her skin was cool, almost fragile. The scientists stared at their screens in disbelief. Probability failure readings dropped even further. System stability reached levels never seen near the girl before. One scientist whispered, "This is impossible." The girl did not pull away. She did not scream. She did not cause destruction. Instead, she leaned closer, just slightly, as if she trusted him. The aliens watching felt fear creep into their hearts. Everything they believed was breaking apart. The cursed weapon was calm. The human was alive. The universe was quiet. The military did not share the wonder. Their anger grew. This human was a risk, a variable they could not control. The commander clenched his fists. "If the human is the trigger," he said, "then he is also a threat." Orders were whispered. Weapons were quietly re-aimed. Plans were made behind cold alien eyes. Ethan sensed the tension. He looked down at the girl and spoke softly. "It's okay," he said, even though he did not know why. The girl's grip tightened on his sleeve. The chains rattled as her hands shook. For the first time in her life, someone stood beside her without fear. For the first time, the curse did not work, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Ethan was not allowed to leave the facility, but he was no longer treated like a prisoner. He was given a small room close to the girl's chamber. The council called it containment. The scientists called it observation. The military called it a mistake. Every cycle, Ethan was escorted to the girl under heavy guard. Weapons followed him everywhere. Cameras watched every movement. But something strange continued to happen. When Ethan was near the girl, the world stayed calm. At first, Ethan did nothing special. He sat on the cold floor at a safe distance. He spoke softly, even though he was not sure she understood. He told her his name. He told her where he came from. He talked about stars, ships, and quiet places. The girl never answered. She stayed silent. Her eyes watched him carefully, like a creature waiting for pain that never came. The scientists waited for disaster. They increased the tests. They brought machines close to her while Ethan was present. Nothing failed. They increased power levels. Nothing exploded. Ethan noticed the pattern before anyone else. When guards shouted, alarms rose. When scientists argued, lights flickered. When fear filled the room, systems became unstable. But when Ethan stayed calm, The girl stayed calm, and the world stayed quiet. One cycle. Ethan spoke without thinking. "You're not cursed, are you?" he said softly. The girl looked at him, her head tilting slightly. The air did not shake. No alarm sounded. That was when Ethan understood. Her power was not random. It was reactive. Fear made it stronger. Hate made it violent. Calm made it silent. The scientists finally saw it too. Data confirmed what they refused to believe. Probability spikes aligned with emotional stress, not proximity. The girl was not bad luck. She was a mirror, but the military did not care. A weapon was still a weapon, controlled or not. They increased security. They prepared backup plans. During one quiet cycle, Ethan sat closer than before. The girl's chains rested loosely now, no longer pulled tight. He placed a small metal tool on the floor between them. A test. The girl reached for it slowly. Everyone held their breath. Nothing happened. She looked confused, then curious. Then something new appeared on her face. Her lips moved slightly. A small, unsure smile formed. It was the first smile she had ever made. Ethan felt his chest tighten. He smiled back without thinking. The lights above them glowed steady and warm. No system failed. No one died. Later, the scientists reviewed old records. They watched footage from her earliest days. They saw terrified doctors, screaming alarms, rushed experiments. They saw how every test was done with force. Every interaction filled with fear. Every mistake blamed on the child. They realized the truth too late. The galaxy had tested her wrong. She had never been a curse. She had been a response. Ethan looked at the girl, sitting quietly beside him. She only needed someone who wasn't afraid, he said. The girl leaned closer, just a little. Somewhere deep in the facility, the military prepared for war. And somewhere higher, the council began to doubt everything they believed. Because one question now haunted the entire galaxy. What if the galaxy made the wrong monster? The truth did not stay hidden for long. Reports leaked from the facility and traveled across the colony, then across nearby systems. A cursed alien girl had chosen a human, and the human could stand beside her without dying. To the scientists, it was a mystery. To the council, it was a danger. To the military, it was an opportunity. If a human could calm the curse, then the curse could be aimed, controlled, used. Military leaders gathered in secret rooms. They spoke of battlefields, enemy fleets, and instant destruction. A living weapon that needed no ships and no armies. Only fear. Orders were written. Plans were approved. The girl would be moved to a weapons division. The human would be trained or replaced. When the soldiers came, Ethan knew something was wrong. Their steps were faster. Their voices colder. Weapons were no longer lowered around him. The commander stood before Ethan and spoke without emotion. "You will assist in controlled activation." Ethan shook his head. "She is not a weapon," he said. "She is a person." The room grew tense. Refusal from a human meant nothing to them. The commander's eyes hardened. "Then you are no longer required." Soldiers moved forward. Hands reached for Ethan. The girl felt it instantly. Fear filled the room. Hate followed. The lights flickered violently. Walls groaned. Alarm screamed. Ethan shouted for them to stop. He struggled as soldiers dragged him away. The girl's breathing became sharp and uneven. Her chains pulled tight as she stepped forward. "Do not resist," the commander ordered. A stun weapon fired. Ethan was hit in the chest. Pain exploded through his body. He collapsed to the floor, gasping. The girl saw him fall. Something broke inside her. For the first time, she did not react to fear. She reacted to loss. The floor cracked beneath her feet. Energy waves tore through the hall. Soldiers were thrown back like dust. Walls collapsed. Ceilings shattered. The base descended into chaos. Power cores overloaded. Defense systems failed. Ships in orbit lost control. The girl screamed, a sound filled with terror and rage. And the scream did not stay inside the walls. Stars outside the colony flared. Space itself seemed to bend. Sensors across the system went blind. Ethan lay bleeding, barely conscious. Through blurred vision, he saw her kneeling beside him. Her hands shook as she touched his face. The destruction stopped around them. She was protecting him, not attacking, not destroying. Alarms continued to echo in the distance. The military realized too late what they had done, because the cursed girl was no longer reacting to fear alone. She was choosing who to protect, and as the stars trembled in the dark, one truth became impossible to deny. The cursed girl screamed, and the stars answered. Ethan survived, but barely. His body was weak compared to alien soldiers. His bones cracked easily. His blood was thin. Machines kept him alive, while alarms echoed through the broken base. The girl stayed beside him. She refused to move. Any soldier who came close felt the air grow heavy. Walls shook when fear returned. So they stayed back, watching, waiting. When Ethan finally opened his eyes, pain filled his body. He could not stand. He could not fight. He could barely speak. The girl leaned closer, her eyes wide and afraid. He raised his hand slowly. Not in command, not in control, but in comfort. "It's okay," he whispered. Those words were small, but they carried weight. The girl studied him. She had seen powerful beings scream orders. She had seen strong warriors threaten her. She had seen scientists force her to react. But this human did none of that. She knew now that Ethan was physically weak. He could not break chains. He could not stop armies. He could not survive without help. And yet he stayed, even when hurt, even when afraid, even when the galaxy turned against them. The council gathered what remained of the base. Leaders watched from behind shields. They saw the girl calm only near the human. They saw destruction stop when he spoke softly. Some called it manipulation. Some called it coincidence. But others began to understand. Ethan was brought before the council in a medical frame. The girl stood beside him, without chains for the first time. Weapons were aimed, but no one dared fire. "You can control her," a council elder said. Ethan shook his head slowly. "I don't control her," he said. "I listen." The words confused them. Power was never shared, only taken. Ethan turned to the girl, ignoring the council. "You don't have to stay," he said. "You don't owe me anything. If you want to leave, I won't stop you." The room went silent. No orders, no threats, no fear. The girl looked at him, at the human who never forced her, never used her, never treated her like a weapon. Her power stirred, not violently, not wildly, but gently. She stepped forward, placed her hand on his chest, and spoke for the first time. "I choose my guardian." The words echoed through the hall, not loud, but unstoppable. Something changed in that moment. Aliens who had ruled through strength felt something unfamiliar. Respect. They looked at the human again, not as weak, not as useless, but as something rare, a being who could stand unarmed before fear, and not become it. The council lowered their weapons. The military stayed silent. For the first time, humanity was not ignored. Ethan closed his eyes, exhausted. The girl stayed beside him, steady and calm. Across the stars, reports spread again. But this time, the story was different. The weakest species had not conquered through force. It had protected through heart. And as the galaxy watched in uneasy silence, one truth became clear. The weakest species became the strongest shield. After the chaos settled, the council ordered a full archive release. Ancient records long sealed were opened. Stories that were treated as myths were dragged into the light. The scientists spoke first, their voices careful and uneasy. "The girl is not from any known modern species," one of them said. "She matches genetic patterns from an extinct civilization." The room grew cold. That name was not spoken lightly. An ancient alien race, older than the current galaxy map. A race said to have vanished after rewriting reality itself. They were called many things in old records. Guardians of balance, destroyers of stars. The girl was one of them. Not a weapon, not a curse, but a living node of reality. Her power did not create bad luck. It bent possibility. It pushed reality toward survival or destruction, depending on threat. The scientists explained the truth slowly. When she senses danger, reality shifts. Systems fail to remove threats. Structures collapse to block enemies. Probability turns against those who wish her harm. The curse was never random. It was defense. The council felt fear creep into their thoughts. If her power fully awakened, entire systems could fall. Stars could collapse. Fleets could vanish without battle. Ethan listened quietly, his face pale. And me, he asked. What am I in all this? The answer changed everything. You are her anchor, a scientist said. Your presence stabilizes her perception of reality. You ground her. You remind her she is safe. The girl looked at Ethan, her eyes filled with something new. Understanding. Fear. Without Ethan, fear ruled her. Fear triggered defense. Defense reshaped the universe. The council realized the truth too late. They had almost removed the only thing keeping the galaxy intact. A military officer broke the silence. If the human is removed, he said carefully, then the power will activate without limit. The room fell into shock. Calculations appeared on screens. Simulations showed collapsing trade lanes, shattered planets, dead stars. The galaxy could not survive her fear alone. Ethan spoke again, weak but steady. She never wanted this, he said. She never asked for power. The girl stepped closer to him. Her hand tightened around his. The air stayed calm. Reality stayed still. She only needed someone to stay. The council had no choice now. The human was no longer a prisoner. He was protection. But protection was fragile. Enemies beyond the colony began to move. News of a reality bending being spread fast. Fleets turned toward the system, not to destroy her, but to claim her. The girl felt the danger growing. Stars flickered at the edge of sensors. Ethan felt her hand shake, and the ancient truth echoed through every mind present, written in records older than memory. If the anchor falls, if the human dies, everything ends. The final council chamber was rebuilt in silence. Stronger walls, heavier shields, more weapons than ever before. Fear sat with every leader present. Outside the station, fleets from multiple systems waited. Some came to demand control. Some came ready to destroy. All of them feared the same thing. The girl. She stood in the center of the chamber, without chains. Stars reflected softly in her eyes. Ethan stood beside her, still wounded, still weak. But he did not step back. The council leader spoke first, voice shaking despite the armor. This cannot continue. One human cannot be the balance of the galaxy. The risk is too great. Murmurs filled the room. Suggestions followed. Isolation, separation, permanent containment. The girl listened quietly. Then she stepped forward. The room froze. Weapons powered up. Reality itself seemed to pause. She placed herself slightly in front of Ethan, not hiding behind him, but standing for him. Her voice was calm, clear, and steady. He stays, she said. I choose him. He is not my weakness. He is my balance. Energy surged through the chamber, not violently, but with control. Light stabilized instead of shattering. Walls strengthened instead of cracking. For the first time, her power obeyed her. The council leader looked at Ethan. You understand what this means, he said. You hold the galaxy in your hands. Ethan took a slow breath. He looked around at beings far stronger than him, far older, far more powerful. Then he spoke one simple line. I will stay. No threat, no demand, no pride, just choice. Something shifted in that moment. The ancient power within the girl settled, like a storm finally finding land. Reality bent gently, not to destroy, but to protect. Sensors across the system confirmed it. Stability increased. Threat levels dropped. The universe exhaled. The council lowered their weapons one by one. A decision passed through them silently. Not forced, not feared, but accepted. Humans were no longer observers, no longer ignored, no longer beneath. An official declaration echoed across the stars. Humanity was recognized as equal, not for strength, not for technology, but for something rarer. Heart. Ethan stood quietly as the girl took his hand, not as a guardian above her, but as a partner beside her. The fleets outside powered down. The stars burned steady once more. And the galaxy learned a truth it would never forget. Humanity is not strong because of power. Humanity is strong because of heart. This is just one story of humanity among the stars, and many more await you here. Welcome to the channel where HFY stories come alive.